Round two, Ding Gukesh. Gukesh is trailing by a point here. And Ding opens with e4, not his regular move. Gukesh, we think, can play a variety of different openings here. And the human eval bar says 0.2 for white. This is our human eval bar here on the left. Now, we get, I think, what we call a tame opening by white, and then this move that I don't know how rare it is, but it's a little funky with knight c3. Usually you go knight d2 to preserve like some options for c3. I'm sure it's playable, but it's nothing special. So the human E bar goes down to 0. But at this point, even though it's 0 from an evaluation standpoint, Ding has the advantage of having won the opening. That means that Gukesh is on his own more than Ding is, and Gukesh has to think, and he does here a bit. So he opts for this standard setup with h6 and h6. Okay, bishop e3, and now I'm going to call this a fancy GM move, bishop e6. Ding is still in his preparation, and I think Gukesh is just playing by pattern recognition. And one pattern he's seeing is that if we get this structure, even though the pawns look terrible, these guys do a great job in controlling the center. So that's Black's claim, is that he would have good compensation for the weakened pawns due to that central control. Okay, so a5 happens, and we get this, and fascinating position. We looked at, for example, bishop b4, and I think the intention was maybe queen d3. So that was an interesting momentito. Castles, snip, snop, b3. And all of this was played very quickly by Ding, suggesting that he had seen this or something like it. There's a variety of moves here for Black. We liked what Gukesh played. And in general, from here out, I feel that he definitely outplayed Ding, even though Ding was the one who arrived somewhere around here in his opening prep. So snip, snop, rook a d8. And the basic problem is, who's going to get to d5 with power first? Or d4? And how significant is a knight a4 going to be? We never see knight a4 in this game, but it's kind of a ghost hanging over the entire game. At the moment, it's not possible because of knight takes e4. So Ding thinks for a bit here and plays this move, rook dc1. And I'm not exactly sure what Ding should play, but I don't believe in this move. And I'm going to say from this point, we're going to go like negative 0.3. You know, it's nothing too amazingly better for Black, but Black finds a number of good moves here I really like. So knight d4 is the first one. And maybe what Ding missed, I don't know, is that on knight e5, knight e4 is a strong move. After knight takes e4, we have both rook fe8 and knight e2. They both look good for Black. Okay, so Ding instead goes knight e1. And at this point, the dojo felt confident in saying that Black was a little bit better, simply because we have better pieces. The knight on d4 is stronger. Now, I think the overall claim that White is making is that eventually the pawn on c5 will become a weakness, and therefore Black is obliged to play some active plans. And so here's really a test for Gukesh to see what he comes up with. And I really like what he did. And it took us a while to even understand, for me in any case, to understand what was the intention. He goes rook d6, and this does a lot of things. One, the ability to double, but also in an interesting way, the ability to play knight d7 on knight a4 without getting blocked. And we'll come to that in a second, because after king f1, I was saying to myself, what was Gukesh's intention on rook d6? And I really didn't see his next move coming, and I really liked it. He played g6. Beautiful move. And it took me a while. I was like, what? What is going on here with this g6 move? And the point is, and we don't see this in the game. It's like a ghost that hangs over the game because Gukesh stops it. But the intention, we believed, was knight d7, followed by f5 with some juice on this file. Also, just to say, if we're going to do something, then it'll probably be on the king side. And so this is a very creative idea to try to get something going over there. Okay, I think Ding played a nice move here, rook d1. And the point is that if you say play knight d7 now, then knight d5, it's a little bit of a hassle's coming now because a c3 is going to happen. If you play c6, this rook will be undefended, and then you have to deal with c3. Okay, not pleasant. So I think that was the nice bit about rook d1. Good move. Rook f d8, f3. Now, one thing we got to say about rook f d8 is you're kind of saying, well, maybe I won't go. Maybe I won't go f5 anymore. But now there's tension for black on this file. Like at some point, like let's say white plays king f2, then maybe knight c2 might become a thing with a rook d2 later, depending on the position. It's just an idea, an example of the tension that's available to black now with the doubled rooks and the powerful knight on d4. We have to mention, though, at this point that this knight is horrendous. Okay, so that guy needs to be fixed. We were talking about all kinds of things here, knight d7, all kinds of ideas. Gukesh plays a very simple king g7. And I came to like this move as well, because in all those variations with knight d5, there was a lot of times a discovered check that was going on. And so this gets it out of the way, plus just slightly improves the king's position, which is good. Okay, now we get a tank, and it gets king f2. And white is sitting, okay? This is, Ding might do a lot of this during the match, is just trying to sit on the position. And when your opponent plays creatively, you know, it's tough. It's a tough business here. I was looking at knight h5. I still think that's kind of interesting. Gukesh comes up with h5. Now, maybe I'll just show, like, as an example, knight h5, knight a4. Now the knight's not controlling this anymore. Very interesting variations after knight c2. Hard to evaluate. Let me just show the general point is snip, snap, here, here. And, you know, white is going to get this and this, but black is also going to get some juice going on against those pawns. Hard to evaluate. Okay, so king f2. Gukesh plays h5. Okay. So we felt this was clever, and that knight a4 would then, we could think about knight c2 and knight d7 on knight a4. In the end, Ding played a creative idea, I think, with knight e2. This was a move that hadn't occurred to us really at all. And we think the idea is that if h4, knight takes, pawn takes, and knight d3, just to claim that that knight is a beautiful blockader. I'm going to come back to this position in just a second. So what happens here is knight c6, and it looks like a pretty good move, because if white takes, well, then we have to say that's better for black, because white has a weakness. We were debating, is it minus 0.5, is it 0.3? You know, I don't know. We could debate about it. And so we also liked what white does here. He just goes back. And it's a little surprising at first, because it seems like after rook takes, knight takes, that we're going to win some kind of coconut. But on rook d2, white has king e3, and nothing's happening. All these squares are covered. And on knight a5, rook a5, rook d1, rook c5, we're again not really doing anything. And the problem is our knight's a chump. He wishes he was doing something in life, but he's dominated by the pawn on f3. Okay. So at this point, my friends, they went back and forth, boop, 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 and made a draw. Now, this was unsatisfying for the fans. I think if you're a Ding fan, you should be kind of happy, because as a match strategy, I think Ding should have played on. Gukesh should have played on because he's the young kid. He's got the energy, and I think he's got a slightly better position. If we imagine knight d3, knight e2, and a move like h4, there's other moves too, but the point is just to look at the position and say to yourself, you know what? I'm a little bit better here. I'm going to play f5, and even if I don't believe I'm better, even if I don't believe that, what I can say is I get to keep playing. And that's what I want against Ding. I want to keep the game going. And if you imagine like Carlsen would keep playing in a position like this, even if we'd consider it equal or equal-ish. So there it is, round 2, round 3 tomorrow.